Good morning and welcome. It's a wonderful event. I'm Eric Skinner. I'm the interim chancellor for the California Community Colleges, and it is my pleasure to introduce you, or to welcome you rather, to the 16th annual Dr. John W. Rice Diversity and Equity Awards ceremony. So, but before we get started, got a little music going there. Sets the mood, that's fine with me. So before we get started, I would like to thank some special guests for being here. To begin with, Dr. Rice's widow, Clara Rice. Our keynote speaker, Dr. Louis Godoy. And Keitha Mills, President and CEO of the Foundation for California Community Colleges. I would like to acknowledge the foundation because without their support, we would not be able to have this ceremony, would not be able to have this breakfast. So thank you very much for making this happen. I'd also like to welcome California Community College's Emeritus, Chancellor Emeritus, Dr. Bryce W. Harris. It's great to have you here, Bryce. And I would also like to thank Senator Ben Allen, Senator Patricia Bates, Senator Jerry Hill, and State Controller Betty Yee for providing certifications of recognition and resolutions for today's award winners. We appreciate your support and your dedication to the California Community Colleges and our students, faculty, staff, and administrators that change lives across the state. Now I would like to introduce Board of Governors Vice President Cecilia Estelano. Cecilia was appointed to the board in 2014 and elected to Vice President that same year. Since joining, she's been a tremendous leader for the board and for the system. It's been wonderful to have her on the team. Cecilia is co-founder of Estelano Lazar Perez Advisors, ELP Advisors, which provides consulting services to public agencies, foundations, businesses, or business associations and other stakeholders seeking to grow thriving, healthy, and vibrant communities. Her commitment and dedication to the California Community Colleges and our students is unwavering, and it's been a pleasure to work alongside her. Please welcome California Community Colleges Board of Governors Vice President Cecilia Estelano.
Thank you, Eric. Welcome and good morning. What a beautiful space, isn't it? It was gorgeous. And I have to say, we are blessed by pretty amazing weather. I don't think I've ever been in Sacramento in July with this beautiful, cool breezes. I don't know what happened, but Clara, I'm going to blame it on you. You brought beautiful weather, so thank you for that. So I'd like to share a little background on our former member of our board for whom this event is named, Dr. John W. Rice. Dr. Rice was born in the segregated South in 1923. From those origins, he went on to become a minister and a university leader. In 1946, he earned a history degree at Johnson C. Smith University in North Carolina, the same institution where he later received a divinity degree. He held numerous roles during his long career as an educator, coach, teacher, and counselor. He eventually became the dean of students at Stillman College in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. He later became a professor and assistant vice chancellor at the University of Denver in Colorado. At the insistence of his daughter, former Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice, he moved to beautiful Palo Alto, California, where he held academic positions at Stanford University. In 1989, he married Clara Bailey, whom we are deeply honored to have here with us this morning. Governor Pete Wilson appointed Dr. Rice to the Board of Governors of the California Community Colleges in 1992, where he served until his passing in 2000. Many of us are here today because we've been inspired by someone else. For Dr. Rice, that source of inspiration was his father. He often said his father was his greatest role model, who taught him the importance of helping others. It was a lesson Dr. Rice took to heart and used as motivation throughout his life and career. Dr. Rice was a visionary leader. He was dedicated to ensuring equal access to higher education. As a member of the Board of Governors, he fought tirelessly for policies allowing all Californians, no matter their background, to have the same opportunity to education that he did. He was unwavering in his pursuit of advocating for equal employment and non-bias across the California community colleges. Part of that passion was fueled by something that happened to him in the 1950s in Alabama. Dr. Rice was denied a basic right, one too many of us take for granted. He was denied the right to vote. So Dr. Rice set out to do something about it, to ensure that nobody would ever have to endure the kind of discrimination he had to endure, to ensure nobody was treated as a second-class citizen simply because of the color of their skin, to ensure nobody would be denied their basic human rights. We are still fighting that battle today. Dr. Rice applied those same principles to his work with the California community colleges. He wanted all students to be treated equally, fairly, and with dignity, even though he had once been denied that same treatment. But he didn't let that injustice stop him. Instead, he embraced a life of education. He knew education would lead him on a path to success. He earned degrees and used his knowledge and experience to teach others. He held prominent positions at some of our country's top universities and raised a daughter who would later become the first female African-American Secretary of State. He did it all to forge a path so that others wouldn't face discrimination or bias or hardships because of the color of their skin. And so the Dr. John W. Rice Diversity and Equity Award was established to honor that legacy, to honor how he advocated so tirelessly for others. We have recognized some extraordinary people over the past 16 years, people who go above and beyond to make higher education in California a reality for everyone. People who work day in and day out to give all of our students a chance to succeed. People who teach our students that they can overcome whatever challenges life has handed them. Dr. John W. Rice's greatest wish was for everyone to get the opportunity to receive a first-rate college education because he knew it was the best way to right the wrongs of the past. He knew opening students' eyes to different people, different thoughts, different ideas, and different experiences was the best way to ensure equity for all of us. And that is what we're celebrating here today. You know, this is a difficult time in our country's history. This is a time where we're re-examining issues of bias and discrimination and prejudice. It's a time when I think many of us are reaching down and wanting to believe in this country's best character and being sorely challenged right now. But Dr. Rice has an important legacy, and so today's awards are very important because they celebrate the day-to-day activities that regular people do every single day to combat the darkness that many of us fear may be descending on our country. So, congratulations to all of our winners. These are great stories we're going to hear about. We're going to meet wonderful people. We're thrilled to recognize your achievements, your service, and your commitment to higher education, and we are so, so honored that you put your efforts into our students every day to make California this beacon of opportunity and education and what is best about this country. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vice President Estolano. I would like to express my gratitude and appreciation to the work that the members of the Board of Governors perform on behalf of the California community colleges. Your leadership and vision allow the community colleges to strive and provide a high-quality, affordable education to millions of Californians every year. I would also like to thank all of you in the audience for attending and helping us honor the winners of the awards today. Your attendance at this event means a lot. It's wonderful for us to get together and to celebrate these innovative and motivational programs that are changing lives. We are here to celebrate the legacy and vision of Dr. John W. Rice and to present the 2016 Diversity and Equity Awards to the Family Engagement Institute of Foothill College, the Veterans Education and Transition Services Program at Saddleback College, and the Science and Research Initiative's Chem Boot Camp at Santa Monica College. The winners were selected from a highly competitive pool of nominees. And I tell you, reviewing the applications for this award was truly a great experience. It was a chance to hear about the incredible programs and the many college staff members across the state working hard each day to ensure that our system reflects California's diversity and treats everyone with dignity, respect, and equality. The California Community College's greatest mission is to provide a quality higher education to anyone who wants it, regardless of background, skin color, socioeconomic status, religion, sexuality, or creed. The challenges that come with this mission, though, can be daunting. There are more than 38 million people in our state. More than 2 million people attend our community colleges each year. Our state is large and it is diverse, but it is that diversity that makes California unique and what makes our system so strong. Diversity makes us better. The different ethnicities that make up our faculty, staff, and student bodies make us stronger. We embrace people from all walks of life because we know that difference in thought, difference in ideas, difference in philosophies make for better communities, that make us stronger. It is perhaps a challenging time to talk about our diversity, given the recent tragedies that have occurred across our nation and around the globe. Our country continues to struggle in many ways to fully embrace equality. We've seen it in just the past few days, the violence that can come when diversity isn't recognized and celebrated, and when inequality is tolerated. It is heartbreaking for us all to watch. We feel paralyzed by grief and hopelessness. We're not sure what will solve the problem. There are no easy answers, but I think the first step starts with celebrating diversity and equity rather than running from it, and with simply treating people with respect and dignity. But we know there's much more to it than that. While our country has taken great steps to ending inequality, including liberating millions of people from slavery, extending to women and minorities the right to vote, passing civil rights laws, enacting the Americans with Disabilities Act, and legalizing same-sex marriage, they are simply steps in the right direction, but certainly not the end of the fight. Progress comes slowly, so slowly perhaps that sometimes it feels like it might not come at all. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't try. It doesn't mean we shouldn't stand up for what we believe in. It doesn't mean that we stop advocating for what's right. As you heard, Dr. Rice was once denied the right to vote. He didn't answer that injustice with violence, but rather by educating himself so that he could educate others about tolerance, acceptance, and love. That's why the California community colleges and other institutions of higher education must play an active role in promoting that same message. Gandhi once said, "If we could change ourselves, the tendencies in the world would also change. As a man changes his own nature, so does the attitude of the world change towards him." The struggle to make this world a better place cannot be done alone. We must work together. We must continue the often complex task of educating millions of students who come from different walks of life and help them become better than the day they walked in the door. We must embrace diversity and equity so that our students will embrace diversity and equity, and they will teach others to do the same. While it is a daunting task, we have the ability to make that happen. We are 113 colleges strong. No matter where you are in California, from the Redwoods and Siskiyous of Northern California, the bustling Bay Area, the capital city, the Central Coast, the Sequoias in Central California, the bright lights of Los Angeles and Hollywood, the Inland Empire to the beaches of San Diego, and everywhere in between. There is a California community college near you. We welcome everyone, including recent high school graduates, those who have served their country and now want to learn a new skill or trade, adults who want to be back in school for a second chance or a second career, or those we call skills builders who just need a class or two to move up to another level in their current career. That is the beauty of the community colleges. We welcome anyone who is just trying to make their lives a little better. This is, of course, another thing that makes our mission so challenging. Not everyone who walks onto a community college campus is there for the same reason. Some are looking to complete their 4-year degree, perhaps at UC or CSU, a private institution, or a historically black college or university. Some want to earn a certificate and enter the workforce. Still others are simply looking to learn a new skill, perhaps a second language. The California community colleges can make all these dreams come true, and they excel at doing so. The winners of this award today prove that. One of the winners, the Family Engagement Institute at Foothill College, provides educational opportunities to underserved, low-income families and offers professional development to educators that focus on promoting family engagement, school and workforce readiness, and pathways to post-secondary education. The staff of the Veterans Education and Transition Services, or VETS program, is also doing their part to create a diverse and welcoming campus at Saddleback College. They work hard for the thousands of student veterans who come to our campuses looking to transition to higher education. They help bridge the gap between the military and civilian life, assisting with everything from class advising to mental health services to tutoring. And finally, the Chem Boot Camp has done much to improve diversity and equity at Santa Monica College. They offer academic assistance to help students who are often come from underrepresented groups and help these students to succeed in STEM education. We are incredibly proud of the work that all 3 of these programs have done on behalf of their students. Dr. Rice was a visionary leader. He saw a growing state and millions of people, some of them very new to this country, and did what he could to expand access to public higher education. Dr. Rice fought to keep open access at the California community colleges for anyone who wanted an education. He fought for inclusion, for access, for equity, and for diversity because he knew they were the best weapon against prejudice, ignorance, and suffering. He knew the California community college system is uniquely positioned in our state and society to fight these social injustices. And so, judging by today's winners, I think the California community college system is still doing its part to ensure that Californians have access to the wonderful gift of higher education. Dr. Rice would be happy to know that while there is still progress to be made, our faculty, staff, administrators, and students are doing what they can to promote inclusion. He would be happy to know that his legacy lives on. And now, at this time, it is my pleasure and my honor to introduce Clara Rice.
Good morning. This is the 16th year of the John W. Rice Diversity and Equity Awards ceremony. Yes, the very first one was in 2001. I remember each one very well. And as always, I'm just so thankful to everyone who continued to keep my husband's memory alive year after year after year. And for this, I am so grateful. Even though my back and knees now are continually giving me problems, I think that I would crawl here just to tell you in person how much this ceremony means to me, and to Condoleezza, and to John, as he is probably looking down on us. I want to acknowledge and thank the President of the Board of Governors, Jeffrey Baum, who I understand is not here, the Vice President of the Board, Cecilia Estelano, the retired Chancellor Bryce Harris, and the interim Chancellor Eric Skinner. I would also like to thank the president of the Foundation for California Community Colleges, Keitha Mills. And I will say again, Keitha, without the funds, none of this would be possible, not even the delicious breakfast that we just enjoyed. God bless you. I would also like to thank the Communication Division, the Rice Award Committee. I'm sure this committee has the greatest responsibility because it is the Rice Awards, the reason we're here today. So I want to thank Paige Dorr. I'm sure, Paige, you are the driving force behind this committee. Thanks to Rosa Estrada, who has taken care of my needs starting weeks ago up until the present. I also want to thank the speaker, Louis Godati, this esteemed audience, and they don't know it, but I want to thank the cooks, the servers, the musicians, the ladies at the registration table, the photographers, and even the timers. I don't know if they're in the back of the room now, but I remember that these timers keep everyone on point. One time, a speaker was speaking so long, and the timer was holding up fingers, and the speaker kept going, and finally he went. So I'm going to say a few more words and sit down. Just a few things I would like to say about my late husband, John. Some of you knew John, and probably most of you just heard or read about something about him. But those of you who knew him can attest to the fact that he was a big man, not only in physical size, but he had big ideas and opinions. Wow, did he have opinions and convictions. You could hear about these most of the time when the conversation was about young people and education. He loved young people and he loved education. The two together would sum up John Rice's legacy. I remember he told me when Condoleezza went off to college, she went to be a music major. And John and Condi's mother were so happy that she would graduate and become a great music teacher and would be able to play at concerts and come back and play for his church. But after the first year, she announced to them that she was changing her major to political science. They were horrified. They asked, what was she going to do with that major, teach history? They couldn't get her to change her mind, so they just supported her. Her mother didn't live long enough to see where this major in political science landed her, but John did. But don't think that this made him happy to see her in politics, especially when she left Stanford University as provost to go to the White House. He said to me, how could she leave education? Again, he was horrified. That's just how much he loved the field of education. He wanted her to stay in academia forever. A few years before he died, he was trying to convince me that we needed to start a school that had a dormitory with all the bells and whistles. See, big ideas. And maybe it could have happened if I had bought in, but I started teaching at the age of 20, and I was in my 60s trying to retire as a middle school principal. With that, I wanted no part of anything, especially starting from scratch. John's greatest desire as he was retiring and had retired was to inspire and motivate people and schools to make a big difference in the lives of those who might not have had an equal opportunity in improving their lives. And he would be so proud of the winners today who have made a difference. So on behalf of my late husband, I would like to congratulate the 2016 award winners. the Family Engagement Institute from Foothill College, which is near me, for providing educational opportunities for underserved low-income families, to the Veterans Education and Transition Services at Saddleback College, bridging the civilian and military culture division through inclusion and training. Anything that has to do with the veterans, my heart goes out to them. And the third, the Science and Research Initiative, the Chem Boot Camp at Santa Monica College. This is a program designed to help underrepresented students interested in STEM careers. And my love is there too because my major was in science. So in great anticipation, I'm waiting to hear more about these 3 programs. So I congratulate these winners. And to all of you who are here today, I want to say thanks again, and God bless each of you.
Well, thank you, Mrs. Rice. We are so grateful for your attendance at this event. Your dedication to and involvement in this event each year truly helps to keep Dr. Rice's memory and legacy alive for each one of us. Thank you very much. At this time, I would like to introduce Dr. Helen Benjamin. Dr. Benjamin is in her 11th and final year as Chancellor of the Contra Costa Community College District. She's been with the district since 1990, first as a dean and later as district vice president and interim president of Los Medanos, and as president of Contra Costa College. Before she joined the district, she was in the classroom as an educator, teaching high school English in Texas. Dr. Benjamin is retiring at the end of the year, and we will miss her dearly. Dr. Benjamin is a champion for students' rights. She has fought time and time again to increase diversity among staff, faculty, and students. And she has led the district through turbulent financial times, such as the Great Recession, doing what she could to protect students. She has overseen campus expansions and facilities modernizations, all in an effort to give students the tools they need to succeed. She is a leader, a team player, and an inspiration for all of us. And I tell you, recently she has really been stepping up in a major way for the system, working on some thorny issues and providing great leadership as she is in her last year. So thank you, Helen. And with that, I'm delighted that Helen could join us here today. And so, ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Helen Benjamin.
Good morning. Good morning. It's a real pleasure to see all of you and to have this opportunity. It's an incredible honor for me to be on this program that honors someone as amazing as Dr. John Rice, who was an advocate and champion for equal opportunity and non-discrimination. My role this morning is twofold. I am to introduce the speaker and to talk a little bit about my experience with diversity in education and how that experience has shaped me and my career. I will begin with the latter. The diversity with which I lived for the first 22 years of my life was found within my own race. For you see, I lived in a segregated environment. And when Ms. Castellano was talking about Dr. Rice, she said he was born in 1923 in a segregated environment. Well, I was born in 1950 in a segregated environment, 27 years later. And I was born in Louisiana. I attended all black schools from 1st through 12th grades and then completed my bachelor's degree at a historically black college in Dallas, Texas. I did not sit in a classroom as a student with someone who was not African American until I enrolled in a graduate program at Texas Woman's University at the age of 25. However, I began teaching at the age of 21 to high school students of Hispanic and European descent. Everything was separate in my hometown. Schools, libraries, seating in movie theaters and on buses, and even public drinking fountains. I attended black public schools and recall vividly receiving textbooks with the names of students with whom I had no connection, for they were the books used by white students and then sent to our schools. And when I was writing this weekend, I started questioning myself, did I make that up or was that real? Really, because I do vividly remember it. And so I called Cheryl, with whom I went to school from 1st to 12th grade, and she says, yeah, Helen, don't you? I said, yeah, I remember it, but I just want to make sure I'm telling the truth. Because I guess at this point, I don't want it to be true, although I know it was true. You understand what I'm saying? So this was kind of hard for me to write, and everything's not here, but I'm just trying to give you a sense of what it was like for us. So the white students received new books, and we received their hand-me-downs. Occasionally, we would get brand new, she and I were talking about this, it just came back so vividly. We would get brand new books, and we would be so excited because we were getting new books, and we so rarely got them. It was definitely a separate but unequal system in oh so many ways. And the toughest part of it for me was when they built a new library in our town, and I just loved to read, and I couldn't go in that library. That was a really tough one for me. Cheryl, however, when they finally let us in, she still has her library card. She saved it. It was just really that important to her. But what I did have in my segregated educational process were people who knew me well and cared deeply about my educational success. And because I was home last week, I had the opportunity to go to the funeral of one of our instructors. She was 80 years old. She passed away. She was an English instructor. And she established in town, I don't know how many of you are familiar with Arna Bontemps, who was a black poet. He was from Alexandria, and she had his house restored, and it is now the African American Museum, and was the first African American museum in the state of Louisiana, and she established that after she retired, and her funeral was on Saturday. So it was just an incredible experience to be there and to hear about all the wonderful things she did and all of her students who were there. The educational vacuum in which I existed for my elementary, secondary, and undergraduate education prepared me for what I have faced in the ensuing years. And I think it prepared me well. That's another whole speech. I certainly did not have all of the advantages that my white counterparts had, but I had what mattered most at the time, a learning environment designed for my success. Those experiences, combined with my experiences as a teacher and administrator in environments in which I have been an ethnic minority for 39 of the 45 years of my work life, have shaped the person you see here. I want to add here that because situations, institutions are integrated, that does not mean that what needs to be taking place is taking place. In so many ways, these institutions are desegregated, and there's a huge difference between integration and desegregation, which is yet another speech. So they are absolutely environments in which students, and especially those in the minority or of color, need advocates, and that has been my role. This role, of course, is traceable to my own educational experience. Again, because environments are integrated, it does not mean that students receive equitable treatment, that their identity remains intact, that they are understood, cared for, or cared about. And I've just consistently tried to make sure that those things happen for students. I have tried to keep these issues on the minds of employees, community members, legislators, and anyone who will engage with me on the subject, and even those who don't want to hear it, I do not care. You have to hear it. And this is what we must do if the educational playing field, quote unquote, is to become level. I have simply tried to make possible for others what was made possible for me. That, I feel, is the debt I owe, and have happily attempted to pay that debt for the last 50 years without malice, but in a way that will bring positive results, much like our speaker for the morning has done. I haven't met him yet, but I love him. I can't wait to see Dr. Godoy. I just can't. I think he's just amazing. He currently serves as a cardiothoracic surgery physician, a dream that began to materialize for him in his mid-20s. He was not a likely candidate for this career when he was growing up. He describes his beginnings as humble and has much in common with many of our students. Spanish is his first language, and English is his second. He moved to Northern California from a small village in Mexico with his parents at a very young age, I think at the age of 7. They became farmers, and so did he. After school, he would work with his parents picking and cutting fruit. Despite the challenges he faced, Dr. Godoy admits that these activities instilled in him a strong work ethic and enabled him to overcome many challenges he encountered later. He says he did not realize how disadvantaged he was until he realized the disparities later in life. And that was the same thing with me. I didn't know we were poor. He noticed that his family had no health insurance, no doctor. His mother used medicine they got from Mexico, as well as home remedies to treat them. He became interested in repair and restoration as a result of repairing and restoring the hand-me-down toys they received as a child, and later as he repaired cars. He dropped out of school in 10th grade to avoid gang activity and to support his family. And in that period, he began to feel very guilty about having dropped out of school and looking at what his parents had sacrificed for him. And he re-enrolled in 11th grade. He did independent study in 10th grade. In 11th grade, they allowed him back into school as a junior. However, in 12th grade, he became a father. And he vowed at that point to become the best father he could possibly be. And with fatherhood came commitment, dedication, and passion. He married after high school, earned his X-ray technician license, and worked as an X-ray technician. It was this particular job that inspired him to go into medicine. Because he worked in hospitals, he experienced firsthand the importance of a doctor's hands and the power of his own bilingual ability in helping those with language challenges, especially in medical situations which can be a matter of life and death. He interpreted for Spanish-speaking individuals and gave voice to their condition when no one else could. He realized that a career in medicine would give him the opportunity to explore and use his love for repair and restoration. Isn't that beautiful? In the ultimate way for him, in this time, not improving toys and not repairing cars, but repairing and restoring the human condition. So, in his mid-20s, he began a long journey toward becoming a doctor and became the first in his family to attend and graduate from college, the first to attend medical school, and of course, the first to become a doctor. He attended Solano College and transferred to UC Davis, where he earned a degree in biology and received his medical degree from the UC Davis School of Medicine. He is active in several professional organizations, and from his alma mater he has received the University Medal of Distinction, the Dr. Gabriel Milkstein Humanitarian Award, and Outstanding Medical Student in Surgery Award. He also received honors in surgical oncology from the Stanford University School of Medicine. And I will end by sharing this quote because I think it really does characterize, I feel like I know him now. And this statement that I'm about to read to you was included in his application to medical school. He says, "I love to operate, to use my natural abilities to repair, think on my feet in the moment, and make things as whole as possible. More importantly, I want to be a surgeon because it will allow me to combine my physical abilities to repair and restore with my work ethic, life experience, and humanism, a combination that will heal not only physically, but emotionally and spiritually as well. In this sense, being a surgeon is crucial to me, being the most honorable, true, and complete physician that I can be." Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Luis Godoy.
Thank you very much. That was such a warm welcoming. It really took a lot of, really took me back to moments when I was sitting down writing my applications to medical school and trying to come up with my plan as to how I was going to go from former high school dropout to medicine at a point in time when I had nobody to really guide me along. So thank you very much. First of all, I would like to thank everyone here for coming out here today to honor these organizations that share their vision of helping with diversity and helping students achieve their goals, much like myself. The journey to higher education, to reaching your dreams, can be very difficult, as we all know, especially for students of underrepresented groups, such as myself, first-generation students, and those that are looking to reintegrate themselves back into society. It's truly an honor to be here today. Again, the shared vision of making meaningful change in society and in the world doesn't only stop at our doorstep, but it also allows us to reach out and influence others who will then go on and make meaningful change. And that's, I think, where a lot of the organizations here and a lot of the people that are in this room today can make a huge change. Programs like these, as I was reading through the descriptions, have allowed those of us like myself who have otherwise not been able to have the means to afford a higher education, really helps us to pursue our dreams and helps to inspire us. Again, to illustrate a little bit about my path to medicine and where I am today, just to summarize and elaborate a little bit on what Dr. Benjamin mentioned. So I'll share a story about myself from the beginning. I'll try not to go too far so I don't get the hook, like was mentioned. So I was a child when my mom and dad left my sister and myself in Mexico with our grandmother while they came to California to look for work, looking for a better opportunity. So for the early years in life, the only parent that I knew was my grandmother. And it wasn't until my father came back, I was around 5 or 6 years old, when I actually met him and interacted with him other than cassette tapes. So my dad, for one, never had an education that was formal. He never learned to read or write. So any communication he did with us is he would make these recordings on audio tape, and he would talk to us, and we would sit around and listen to these tapes, whenever they would come in, and we would send messages back, and that's how we communicated back and forth. So he returned to Mexico to come get my sister and I, and we were about 7 years old when we came to Suisun Valley, which is not too far from here, about 35, 40 minutes from here. And we moved to this migrant farm camp where it was my dad and other families and migrant workers who would come and go throughout the seasons. You know, as was mentioned, we would spend full days working. I remember I used to hate the summertime. I know other students love summertime because they can go to camp or go, you know, on vacation. But for us, you were pretty much getting doomed to working from sunup to sundown. So summertime was the worst. And then during the regular school year, we would go to school all day, come home, go to work, help our parents, and then eventually somewhere throughout the night, make it back and try to learn English and try to learn, you know, do the homework and do what you can to get by. As I mentioned, my mom she had maybe a second grade education. My dad had none. His education at the time was working at a mechanic shop. So when he was 5 and 6 years old, he was the oldest of, at that time, he had like 4 younger siblings. He had to go and work, so he was working at a mechanic shop, and he would take apart carburetors because he was a little kid and his hands were small. He could take things apart and put them together. So I think that's kind of, you know, where I picked up some of that sense that he had. But he never learned how to read or write. You know, and where we come from and where we lived and the way that I was raised was that education wasn't always at the forefront of our goals. For us, a person was respected for the amount of hard work that they instilled, how hardworking they were, not necessarily by how educated they were. And so they instilled this hard work ethic in me, which is one of the most valuable things that I have in life that my mom and dad gave me at that point in life, and has really allowed me to overcome a lot of the challenges that I have faced throughout this point. Again, when we were young, we couldn't afford new toys, so we'd, you know, find garage sale finds. I'd spend time with my dad's tools, taking apart toys, building my own toys. I was just fascinated by the way things worked. There was just something about spending time with focus, working with my hands that just, you know, something that's hard to describe. You kind of get in this flow of things. And it wasn't until later on in life that I figured out when I was performing a heart surgery on somebody that I realized, like, wow, you know, even back then, like, there was just something about that point in time that really, you know, was a big influence into who I am today. So as I got older, I was, you know, began to be ashamed of working in the fields. You know, I was 12, 13 years old, started getting interested in girls. You know, your friends start hanging around, you know, you start getting little cliques. You know, and I was, you know, embarrassed to come to school with, you know, my hands stained from the vegetables that we were working with, you know, torn clothes. So I started to hang around with the wrong crowd at that time. And by the time I made it to high school, I was already, you know, getting into a lot of trouble with some of my friends. A lot of my friends ended up getting kicked out of school, thrown in juvenile hall. And by the time I was in 10th grade, you know, some people like to, you know, think that was like the bottom of the, you know, bottom for me at that point. I don't really see it that way, though. When I was in 10th grade, I got into a couple of fights in school, got into a lot of trouble, and was eventually expelled from school. And during that year, when I was expelled, I began to work full-time. I was working in carpentry, I was a cook, and I was working as a mechanic. And during that time, like I said, it was, you know, some consider it the bottom. That's when I had one of those moments, you know, those epiphanies in life that you have, where I just realized, you know, something just flashed in my mind, looking back to the years and the sacrifice that my parents had made, where I decided that I was going to change. I was going to do something to change. So I enrolled in independent study and was able to come back for my 11th grade of school. The reason that I think that I was expelled during that time and came back at that particular time was that a lot of the same people that I would hang out with and get in trouble with, people who were in jail or dead or, you know, shot or something, all of those people had already been like weeded out by that time. So when I came back for 11th grade, a lot of those influences weren't really there anymore. So I was able to focus more on school. So, I don't know exactly what that says about our, or the education system that I grew up in, where people kind of get weeded out. But that's what I realized. Like, I came back and I was able to focus a bit more than I had before. So came back for 11th grade, met my wife, Rita, when I was in 12th grade. And by the time I graduated, we were parents to a little boy. And so becoming a father early on really was another one of those moments where it was a challenge. A lot of people at that time were just telling me, well, you just work full time, you got to support your son. I had barely been able to graduate high school. I went to summer school like every single year just to earn the one last credit that I needed to graduate on time, which I had. So I wasn't the best high school student, I'd like to admit that up front to anybody. When I speak with high school students, I'd like to tell them that, because I was not the best high school student. I had probably more F's than C's or D's or B's, and you can still become a doctor, right? So when my son was born, I decided I wanted to do something other than repairing cars and carpentry and construction, to become a better role model for my son. So I enrolled into a certificate program to get an X-ray technician's license. So it was like a 12-month program. I'd work in the day, go to the classes in the evening, and then take your state licensing exam, which I did. And that was another one of those turning points in my life where I was able to then work at a clinic and then at a hospital where I was actually exposed to the field of medicine, and working with two kinds of physicians. I worked with some really, really good physicians that would take the time to explain to the patients what they had and sit there and listen. And even if they were Spanish-speaking vineyard workers, covered from head to toe in mud, they would really take the time to treat them with dignity and respect. And then at the same time, I saw other physicians that would just, rush through their visits, not really take the time to explain things, just, give somebody medicine and get them out the door without really explaining what they had. And so at that point in life, I started to think to myself, like, wow, like if this guy can make it and become a physician, I think I can probably do it myself too. So that's when I really started to think about it. And it was when I was working in St. Helena Hospital that I really decided that, I would ask one of my mentors there, one of the doctors that I work with that I really admired, if he thought that I would have, do you think I can make it to medicine? Do you think I have what it takes? And when I went to his office to talk to him, I had made an appointment ahead of time. First thing that he says when I walk through the door, he's like, I've been meaning to tell you for the longest time that I think you should go back to school. I think you should become a physician. Like, I think you would make a great doctor. And so that answered my question at that point. Later on that day, I started to look into, how, because I had no idea how one becomes a doctor. I had no idea. You had to go to college, you had to get a bachelor's degree, then you had to apply and take tests. I had no freaking clue. So I started to do some research and, going on the internet when I barely knew how to type on the computer. And, it looked pretty easy, like, oh, you got to take 1 year of biology and 1 year of physics and 1 year of this and that. And so I thought, like, well, that sounds pretty reasonable. But again, I did not even know where to start. Like, obviously I couldn't go and apply to UC Davis right away because, my grades were very, very poor. Didn't have a good application, not a lot of good like extracurriculars or honors, like most people that are applying to a 4-year institution. So I was scared to death. I had no idea where I was going to begin. I didn't have any money. My parents didn't have the means to help pay for school. At that time, I was living in Suisun Valley, and Solano College was right down the street from where I grew up. So I thought that the best option at the time was to enroll at Solano College, which I did. I continued to work full-time. I'd go to college in the evenings, take the night classes, and then go home, sleep a couple hours, and get up really, really early. I used to get up around 4:35 every morning to do the work and the reading and everything that I had to do, and then go to work all day long, and then go to class in the evening, and then the cycle would repeat again. And again, that's one of those things that growing up as a farm worker, where you have to get up at the crack of dawn and work a long day and then come home. I think all of that kind of really helped me in that sense. So I was very disciplined about getting up early and getting my work done. And it was when I was at Solano College that I started to seek advice and guidance as to how I needed to get to medicine. By word of a friend, I've heard of the MESA program, which is a Math, Engineering, Science Achievement Program. It's a program that provides support for students from educationally disadvantaged backgrounds, and it helps to provide them with guidance in math, engineering, and science to help them obtain a 4-year degree in those fields. And then for the first time at that point in my academic life, I was exposed to people who actually cared about getting you to your goal. I was surrounded by students who were like-minded. They had similar goals as me. And I was provided with faculty and guidance counselors who were there to help me navigate to the field of medicine. We participated in science academies. We went to field trips to large universities, to Stanford, Davis, among others. Went to medical conferences. One of the main conferences I remember was the American River Pre-Med Health Conference as an undergrad. Now it's a huge conference at the main UC Davis campus, but I remember first when it used to be at American River College, and we were just talking about that earlier today, where that was such a monumental moment in my life because I was exposed to physicians who were reaching out to students, and that's where I found a lot of mentorship. And I participate in those conferences now because I feel that's a responsibility of mine to now reach out and mentor other students. One of the special projects that I remember in Solano was a Lalander humanitarian project, which was a project that we undertook. It was the challenge was to design a water pump that was powerless, that pumped water uphill without using manpower, without using electricity. And it was for a village in Afghanistan called Lalander that was, it was during, after the war, so all their infrastructure was destroyed, and they had a lot of kids would go downhill to fetch water, and there was a lot of landmines, and kids would fall in the water and drown. So one of the humanitarian projects that was going on was a reconstruction effort, and through that they encouraged students to participate in trying to develop this pump. And the reason I bring the pump up is because from that point on, in my medical school applications or my interviews, residency interviews, and even out from there, people still ask me about that pump. They're like, how did you guys get water to go uphill with no power? And so I've had people actually literally pull out a napkin and ask me to draw it out for them. Like, how did you guys get this to happen? So that was one of those things that, early on from community college, it's really gone, from here to Stanford University when I was there, they were really interested in how this pump worked. So long story short, I had a great time at Solano College, found the mentors that I needed, people to guide me in the right direction, and the peers to kind of walk with me along the path. And eventually I made it to, applied and made it to the UC Davis School of Medicine, and it was there that I realized that I had found my life calling. I remember being in anatomy lab during my first year with a scalpel and a probe, and going through the human body and having that sense of time standing still that just kind of flashed back to me, and I knew that that's what I was meant to do, and that all of my life experiences throughout life had really led me to that a point in life. On the medicine wards, as a third-year student, you rotate through the different hospital rooms and see patients. That's where I really learned a lot about myself and the human spirit. One of my patients, who was Spanish-speaking, mid-40s, had been diagnosed with cancer a couple of years earlier, who now came back with some abdominal pain and abdominal problems. We took him to the operating room and found that his cancer had spread everywhere, and there was pretty much nothing that could be done at that time. And it wasn't until afterwards that I talked to him a little bit more and realized that years early on, when he first got diagnosed, he was supposed to follow up and get some chemotherapy, some radiation treatment, but he never did. And so I investigated a bit further, and he confessed to me that he never really understood what the doctors were telling him. He had no idea that he needed chemotherapy. He had no idea that he needed to follow up because he didn't understand. He was just embarrassed to say so. So that was a really moving moment for me, where I realized, like, wow, as a Spanish speaker, I can really reach across that language barrier and help provide the best care that I can. So my life experiences from the very beginning have really molded who I am today. From the days picking peaches, cutting fruit. There's something about the way you use a scalpel to cut around human tissue sometimes that I like to think I developed that skill from cutting fruit. I used to cut peaches growing up. So there's like a swift move that you do. And that's one of those things I picked up along the way. The hard work that my work ethic that my parents instilled in me from my days of a high school dropout. All of these moments and experiences have given me a tremendous amount of insight and empathy that can't really be taught in the classroom. And as I reflect on my journey to where I am today, I can't help but be thankful for the opportunity that Solano Community College really provided for me at that time. It was, I see it as a second chance and a way for me to redeem myself. So it was a redemption for myself for the mistakes that had occurred early on. And it was a place where I really found people who believed in my potential, people who were willing to stand with me along my journey. The program's being honored today. I want to say congratulations to all of you. You have proven your dedication towards faculty and staff diversity and student equity. You are all in a unique position to not only inspire but help mentor aspiring students to reach their goals. And as they move along on their journey to change the world, they will remember you and they will appreciate your support. Much like I remember the professors, advisors, and mentors from Solano College who helped me along my path to redemption and success. So with that, I'd like to thank you all for coming out here today. Thank you very much.
I would like to extend a big thank you for your coming and joining us here today, Dr. Godoy. On behalf of the California Community Colleges, please accept our heartfelt appreciation for sharing your inspirational story and your thoughts with us today. The Board of Governors established the John W. Rice Diversity and Equity Award 16 years ago, a few months after Dr. Rice passed away. This award recognizes a community college staff member or program that has made a significant contribution toward faculty and staff diversity or student equity. Nomination forms are sent to the colleges by our office every spring, and a panel of volunteer readers from the Chancellor's office is assembled to go through the nominations and select the winners. There were many nominations this year. It was a difficult selection process. And now we will make the awards. So our first award this morning is presented to the Family Engagement Institute of Foothill College.
We're doing this together. Okay. So, very inspired by everything I have heard today. So welcome everyone, and thank you to the late Dr. John W. Rice, Mrs. Rice, Board of Governors of California Community Colleges, the Foundation for California Community Colleges, who bestowed upon the Family Engagement Institute of Foothill College this incredible honor to receive this year's Dr. John W. Rice Diversity and Equity Award. Those two words, diversity and equity, could not mean more to the Family Engagement Institute, Foothill College, and the Foothill De Anza Community College District, whose priority goals are driven by the vision of student equity. Equity is not equal. We need to reshape the notion of equality in order to achieve the equity goal and to see equity as a legitimate concept. Equity does not mean sameness. We don't all start from the same place. The distance some of us have to travel is farther than others. In order to get to the goal of equity for all, we must focus on those that will get us to all. To close the gap, to support structures and institutions, provide opportunities, a voice, access, a place at the table for our underrepresented and vulnerable populations. Dr. John W. Rice was a leader in his commitment to equity and the value of diversity. For students, staff, faculty, and communities, now more than ever, we need to continue this legacy and the urgency to this commitment. If families aren't doing well, children and youth will not do well. If students don't achieve, communities will not thrive. If we don't work together on a shared vision of equity, the world continues to be at risk. This collective call of urgency is also a call of opportunity. Equity creates a path that starts with hope and leads to change. My name is Betsy Nikolchev, and I'm the Executive Director of the Family Engagement Institute. The Family Engagement Institute, FEI, is a multi-generational college connection that exists to eliminate educational inequities through igniting innovative thinking among our children, youth, families, educators, and community to change futures. FEI partners with our local preschools, K-12 districts, and community-based organizations that serve underrepresented students in order to provide school and college readiness educational programs for children and parents, youth mentorship opportunities, and professional development for our educators and providers. And through these different venues, FEI invites learning communities to think differently, to inspire passions, and to inspire change, to ensure everyone actualizes the power of education. FEI is grateful to the Dr. John W. Rice Awards Committee, who pay attention and support institutions that are doing work in diversity and equity. And thank you for encouraging those courageous conversations, to keep them front and center, and to make a long-term investment until the work is done. FEI is honored to represent our Foothill De Anza Community College and its special guests in attendance, who are equally responsible for the acceptance of this award. Our Chancellor, Dr. Judy Miner, our new President, Thuy Nguyen, our Vice President, Denise Sweat, our Board of Trustees, Laura Casas and Pearl Chang, our Associate Superintendent of our partner, Mountain View Los Altos Union High School District, Brigitte Saraf, and our Director at FEI of our early learning programs, Carmen Ponce. And now I'd like to share this very transformational moment with somebody who is on our team, a part of FEI, a friend, and a Foothill student, Carlos Pacheco. Thank you, Carlos.
Hello, everyone. My name is Carlos Pacheco, and I'm honored to be speaking on behalf of the Family Engagement Institute, or FEI, where I work as a student intern, instructional assistant, and a child and youth mentor. After having spent a year at Humboldt State University, I decided to take an educational leave for financial reasons and enrolled as a full-time student at Foothill College. This allowed me an affordable pathway to continue to pursue my educational and lifelong endeavors. In addition, Foothill has given me the opportunity to work as part of the FEI team with children, youth, families, and educators from diverse backgrounds. This experience has given me a better understanding of the active role families and communities play in student success and the relationship it holds with equity. I'm a cellular molecular biology major and an aspiring pediatrician. I plan to add child development as my minor, and this decision is due largely in part to my work with children through FEI Stretch to Kindergarten, a tuition-free kindergarten readiness program for children who have not had the opportunity to attend preschool, and solidified by my work at FEI with families enrolled as Foothill College students in tuition-free, non-credit parenting courses. As a pediatrician, I plan to donate my time and service to families who are underserved and under-resourced, whether it be statewide, nationwide, or on a global scale. My work as an aspiring pediatrician has begun at FEI. I first became acquainted with FEI at the age of 16, when I had taken up an internship at Stretch to Kindergarten. I worked directly with young children and families in the classroom under the guidance of a teacher, a paraeducator, and a mentor, all of who stressed the importance of creating a welcoming environment and promoting family engagement. I immediately fell in love with the experience. I was invited back as a paid mentor for the succeeding 2 summers, for which I could not have been more thrilled. It was during my 3rd year at Stretch to Kindergarten that I had commented to Betsy about my enrollment in Foothill College, after which she had invited me to join the FEI team as a work-study student, all leading up to this very moment. I come from a single-parent Mexican-American household. I was raised by my hardworking mom, who had taken on the responsibility of raising me at a very young age. And working 2 jobs and raising a child, she saw higher education as out of reach and ended her studies immediately after high school. To my avail, she had recognized her personal travails and aspired to lessen those I may face. My mom would spend roughly 2 hours a week in my classroom, not counting the various field trips she was more than happy to attend as a chaperone, and would use the teaching strategies she had learned in the classroom at home. Among the many ways my mom engaged in my education, the most significant was in establishing early on the importance of receiving an education and setting expectations of doing well and a higher education. Her philosophy on education was one based on self-empowerment for self-development, and I was very receptive to the idea. I carried on through my studies with the idea that all we may achieve is through our personal merit, that those who attain a higher education are the most talented or able, and those who do not are neither. However, in my work at the Family Engagement Institute, I made a crucial realization about success and how it is achieved. It is not to say that those who do not attain a higher education are unable. We are all able. Instead, it is through making educational resources and opportunities available for all to access that serve as immense beacons of support and that allow us to achieve our full potential. Educational resources and opportunities are not always readily available for individuals, a matter of equity. I can only imagine where I would be at this very moment had my mom not taken an active role in my learning. Had I not joined the AVID program at Mountain View High School, where I was guided through the college preparation, application, and selection process. Had I not received a substantial amount of money from the MBLA scholars. Had I not taken on an internship at Stretch to Kindergarten, where I decided I did not want to be a general physician, but a pediatrician. Had I not become a part of the Family Engagement Institute. Where might I be now had I not received all the support, opportunities, and encouragement? The Family Engagement Institute is much more than the Foothill College non-credit courses, Stretch to Kindergarten, or the Child Development Academy. To understand FEI is to view it from a social justice perspective. FEI is a space of hope, change, and opportunity where underrepresented children, youth, and families have a voice and a role to promote their own pathways to a post-secondary education, to continue their learning, and to prepare for school and the workplace in order to pursue their dreams for a quality life. There are so many life-changing FEI stories, like Guadalupe's, a mother of two who decided she wants a better life for her kids after having taken FEI's Families as Leaders course, non-credit course offered in East Palo Alto, one of the many under-resourced communities FEI serves, or Perry's story, a parent of a young child who has taken advantage of her status as a Foothill College student enrolled in FEI's Stretch to Kindergarten non-credit parenting program, and is now taking non-credit ESL, English as a Second Language, class to widen her and her daughter's opportunities. However, the FEI story that is closest to my heart is that of my mom, the young mother who saw her education is out of reach and who has returned to school and is thriving in a learning community that supports all individuals to pursue their dreams. As a mother of a soon-to-be adolescent, my younger brother, she recently enrolled in FEI's Foothill College non-credit parenting course, Navigating Middle School. I asked for her thoughts on the class, and she told me that the experience was quite foreign to her, but in a good way. That in hearing the class presentations of guest speakers invited to share their challenge journeys to success, she felt as though she was a part of something more profoundly important, raising a member of our youth, our future. My mom has always believed my brother and I are destined for great things. However, she is now reminded that part of our success is measured in how we positively influence others, as those guest speakers did her. As a mother, she has recognized her influence and leadership, and she feels empowered, something she told me that as an undocumented Latina, she has not felt for a long time. So much so that she has been asking me to help her register for credit courses at Foothill College this fall. I have been given the opportunity to return the long-deserved support to the woman who gave me everything I have now, to help her pursue her education and realize her dreams, so that she may continue to inspire myself and my younger brother to do the same. This is life's example of the multi-generational impact of the Family Engagement Institute. Thank you.
Well, thank you and congratulations. What a powerful program they have. And on to our second award winner, which will be presented to the Veterans Education and Transition Services Program at Saddleback College.
For the past couple weeks, I've been trying to figure out what to say to you all. I thought this would be a good time for me to tell you what type of students come through Saddleback College Vets program. In order for me to explain to you what I mean by this, I thought it would be interesting for you to hear my story. I was born and raised in upstate New York. At the age of 18, almost failing out of high school, I enlisted in the Marines. At 18, I was at war in Iraq. On my 21st birthday, I wasn't at a bar. I was being shot at. What I'm trying to tell you is that military service molds you. After being honorably discharged, I lost myself. I found myself in a very dark place, a place I never want to go back to. I was homeless, had no job, failed out of college, and was struggling with PTSD and depression. I needed to be remolded. I needed to reinvent my life, but not lose those values and skills the Marine Corps instilled in me. For me, that path was returning to Saddleback College as a reentry student. My GPA was at a solid 0.00, and every day felt like a struggle. Right off the bat, I realized that if I wanted this bad enough, I'd have to reach out for help. And at that moment, the Saddleback College Vet Program stepped up the bat. They hit me out of the park. They changed my life. They propelled me all the way to Stanford University, where I'm now conducting research for the summer. In the fall, I'll be attending University, California, Berkeley for mechanical engineering. My hopes for today would give you a glimpse to what I've gone through, to where I came, how close I came to falling off the edge. If it wasn't for the Saddleback College Vets program, I wouldn't be where I'm at today. For the first time since the military, I feel like someone had my back. My name is Gregory Zaborski, and I am a United States Marine. To the Saddleback College Vets program, thank you.
folks. You've heard a few esteemed speakers today, but I have a little piece of advice. Never follow a honor student who's a real-life G.I. Joe. Did a pretty good job. And hopefully I won't bore you enough to hunt Pokemons right now. It's with great humility and honor that the Veterans Education and Transition Services Program at Saddleback College accepts this award. Dr. Rice's career and the work of his whole family lay the foundation for equity and diversity in higher education. In many ways, he pioneered inclusion and equality of access to education in our state. As his daughter, former Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice, once stated, "My father knew that education can give anyone, regardless of background, a chance to be somebody that they would not otherwise be." You've seen that in a few speakers today. Our California community college system embodies this belief, and to those of you in the audience today, my fellow educators, you give life to that quote by inspiring our students and giving them pathways to self-sufficiency and an educated, thoughtful life. I myself, I'm a product of the community college system, and by my hairline, you can tell it was a few years ago. Yet I'm a civilian and someone who's been in veteran services for the better part of the past decade. I know that in many quarters in higher education, our prior military are not seen as having a distinct culture or identity. To the selection committee, thank you for recognizing our nation's military veterans as a population that adds to the tapestry of diversity that makes up our great state and our amazing community college system. This is groundbreaking, and many of you may not know this, but it's profoundly meaningful to the 2.1 million veterans in our state that they're included in this. There comes a distinct time in the history of a college and in a system in which there's a tidal shift in thinking, a massive correction or adjustment in the way an institution or collective not only views their students, but also in the way they serve and educate them. For our California community colleges, and specifically Saddleback College, this pedagogical about-face in how we engage and integrate our veterans into our campuses occurred back in 2009. The VETS program was pioneering, yet this paradigm of understanding the incredible value our veterans have to our college's learning environment and in directly assessing and addressing their needs and potential barriers to success on our campuses quickly spread like wildfire. Since 2009, we have seen a 400% increase in the student veterans attending Saddleback College. We now even extend our services down to Camp Pendleton to service members before discharge. We forged numerous partnerships with agencies and nonprofits, and we have been mentoring dozens of colleges and universities throughout the nation and seen the aspects of our VETS program replicated at over 75 institutions in the United States. We've actually adopted legislation with elected officials for the betterment of veterans' reintegration process. The post-9/11 GI Bill opened the doors to higher education to hundreds of thousands of veterans, yet to what end? Frankly, 40% of all GI Bill funds have gone to the University of Phoenix, one single for-profit institution. But with that, our system must be praised. Annually, we have a headcount of 50 to 70,000 student veterans in the California Community College system. If we merely are bringing them in like a cattle call, we're no better than the profiteers in higher education. I believe that the Saddleback College VETS program is being recognized today for being the antithesis to these profiteers who are preying on our nation's heroes and our tax dollars. Saddleback College is truly serving those who have served us, and we are blessed to do so. As the first Veterans Resource Center and Veterans Services program in Orange County, and only the third in the state, we did not merely assume that you offer student veterans a broom closet, toss them the keys, and call it a day. This is not veteran services. In fact, a college would further perpetuate the dangerous isolation and institutionalize the segregation of this group by doing so. Unfortunately, due to a lack of funding and mandates, it is still the norm in our state and the nation. We must create and fund categorical programming for veteran services so this is not done in a future date. Saddleback took a far more nuanced and academic approach. You must fill that space of a vet center with passionate professional staff as well as nonprofit and governmental partners for mental health, VA benefits assistant, housing, and much, much more. Add camaraderie building events and integrate your student veterans with the rest of the campus, and you have a formula for success. These men and women are able, committed, skilled. They're just seeking upward social mobility through higher education. Listen to your student veterans, rely on the experts, research the field, and be thoughtful in your efforts, and always stand by your word. No college in the United States does what Saddleback College does. Those sitting in the front right, if you could raise your hand, Saddleback Vets team. And those on the Vets team who are unable to be here today, as well as our entire college staff, faculty, and administration, must share in the pride that we have in continuing to be pioneers in this field. We know these men and women are extremely capable, yet, because of our location, we serve veterans with high rates of combat deployments, service-connected disabilities such as PTS, TBI, depression, and hearing loss, and the self-efficacy and identity crises that often manifest themselves in reentry student populations. With over 600 student veterans per semester and more than 8,000 distinct visits to our Little Vet Center each year, our work is cut out for us. For example, among colleges and universities in our state, we now offer more veterans counseling, a stronger student veterans council integrated into our college governance system, the largest veterans memorial, the longest running and most duplicated Boots to Books transitional course educating 70 veterans per year, one of the most intrusive and directly engaging case management programs for veterans close to or on academic probation, and one of only 10 West Coast campuses with on-site vocational rehabilitation counseling, a veteran service officer, and dedicated DSPS counseling. This is only a small sampling of what the VETS program offers. We owe it to our prior military to continue to serve them as they enter our local communities and seek a new and better life. In closing, I would be remiss not to offer some gratitude to a few folks today who need to share in this acceptance. David Lawrence is in the crowd. He's always been a helpful and loyal ear in the Chancellor's office and done great things for our state. Dr. Pam Walker, a dedicated educator who leads from the front but also gets her nails dirty on the ground floor with all of us. Bobby McDonald, Lance Nzume, Nancy Sumner, Manny Baca, who've risked so much as leaders to keep the needs of veterans at the forefront of our thoughts. Thank you for your leadership. Brooke Sauter and Jason Conway, vet staff members here in the crowd today who do amazing work day in, day out. Colin Williams, who's seen as one of the best veterans counselors in the state of California, is relied on by so many others of his peers. Dr. Todd Burnett, our college president and the man who hired me 8 years ago, and it took a risk on me, but challenged me to build the best team and change the landscape of veterans services. He is, bar none, the most committed college president for student veterans anyone could ask for. Greg Zaborski, who you just heard from, and Anand Kothari, who's in the crowd, as well as all the student veterans in our system. Thank you for your service to all of us and your sacrifices for our freedoms. We all are committed to see you flourish as civilians. Use our community college system to propel you to even greater heights than you could imagine for yourself. And as Dr. Rice would have it, be someone you would not otherwise be without these opportunities in higher education. Again, thank you to the committee and the Rice family for this amazing honor. And please keep our nation's veterans at the center of our social justice discussions and our reformation of the California community college system. Thank you.
All right, well, congratulations and thanks for leading the way in terms of serving our student veterans. Thank you very much. And our third and final award this morning is presented to the Science and Research Initiative's Chem Boot Camp at Santa Monica College.
Good morning. This is the tallest I've been in a long time. I'm Dr. Melanie Bocanegra. I'm the Associate Dean for STEM and Equity Programs at Santa Monica College. And I came to Santa Monica 4 years ago to help establish the very first STEM program at the college. With a PhD in cancer biology from the Stanford School of Medicine, it's common for most people to focus on the end of my academic journey, but I always focus on the beginning, the fact that I'm an LA Mission College graduate and a product of equity-focused STEM programs. Community college STEM programs provide the foundation that inspires young scientists to achieve greatness by giving them a second chance at succeeding in STEM. That's why I have always approached this work with passion. It's not just a job for me, it's a calling. Working alongside equally passionate faculty and staff to create the chemistry boot camps and the embedded tutoring programs has been an absolute honor. At SMC, we choose to solve inequity by welcoming our college president, our vice presidents, deans, our wonderful student support staff, and of course our students into our solutions. One of the most rewarding parts of our work is hearing directly from students, so it's my pleasure to introduce Diego Villegas, a wonderful chemistry bootcamp participant, to share a few words about his experience.
Good morning. Hello, I'm Diego, and I'm honored to be standing here among several wonderful individuals who also share a passion towards diversity and equity. As a molecular cell and developmental biology major at Santa Monica College, I have learned that it's important to go above and beyond the classroom doors in order to be dedicated, successful, and prevail. The chemistry bootcamp that I attended was the second one that SMC was offering, and I can honestly say that choosing to participate was the best decision I made that spring semester. I decided to attend because I felt like it was going to be beneficial towards my learning, and I needed as much help as possible because the material that I was learning in class was really challenging. I never imagined that coming to school for 8 hours on a Saturday would help me so tremendously. It made me realize that the regular class hours weren't enough to learn the material I needed to know in order to pass the course. I was able to learn chemistry in the greater depth, and the sessions were so impactful to me and to the other students that they were extended until the end of the semester. Every Saturday was so different. I began to learn new material at a faster pace and began to see improvements in my test scores. What I found most helpful was the motivation and the teamwork that every student and teacher possessed, because it helped me want to keep coming and keep learning new things. If it weren't for these boot camps and my teacher's persuasion to attend them, I know I would have struggled a lot to learn the material by myself. It was a small sacrifice that went a long way, because at the end of the semester, I finished my chemistry class with a B. I would now like to introduce one of my faculty members that inspired me to attend the boot camp, Professor Muriel Walker-Wog. Thank you.
Just because a student was born to poor parents does not mean that he or she cannot reach to the highest levels of excellence in science. And just because she could not understand some terms and does not succeed in an exam does not mean that she cannot become a great scientist someday. As my colleague Terry Green says, we must give these students hope that they can achieve in spite of all the adversity that life throws their way. At the end of summer 2014, when I saw that my Black collegians and Adelante students were again failing, I asked for a meeting with Vice President Georgia Lorenz. Also present were Sherry Bradford of Black Collegians and Maria Martinez of Adelante. These two programs serve our underserved students. And my esteemed colleague and partner in crime, Dr. Roman Faraday, was also present. You see, I've been the Black Collegians Adelante instructor for Chemistry 10 for over 16 years. And yes, as a high-achieving instructor who demands that they do their work and come to boot camps, I was concerned because the addition of the science, technology, engineering, math students, the STEM students, that it caused a huge decrease in the performance of the underserved students. Nothing had changed. You know, I gave the same lecture with the same content, with the same high level of expectations. Even though the STEM students had a higher level of math, it should not have affected the Black Collegians and Adelante students. So at that meeting, I proposed that a Chem 10 boot camp be instituted in fall 2014. I would teach the same concepts discussed during lecture, but with a more one-on-one instruction in an engaging and a collaborative setting. With the help and funding from Marie and Sherry, I held 2 consecutive boot camps. One fine Saturday morning in September, I woke my husband up, Bob, and my sons up at 4:30 a.m. We took snacks and drinks to Santa Monica College. Then about 15 of my students came to learn. Each boot camp started at 8 a.m. in the morning and ended at 3 p.m. in the afternoon. Everyone was exhausted, including my husband, because he stayed with me. But by the end of the second Saturday, my students kept begging for more. Fortunately, Dr. Melanie Bocanegra, our SMC Equity Officer and Associate Dean for STEM, was able to obtain an equity grant funding for additional boot camps. So in spring 2015, Roman and I began our first semester-long Saturday boot camps. We would start at 1 p.m. and continue to 4:30. Afterwards, we would meet to discuss methods to enhance our approach. Our boot camps are an intensive experience for our students. The day begins with pre-assessments of concepts, includes collaborative projects, and ends with a post-assessment. This is intense, but they have fun. SMC's institutional research analyzed data from the first 5 weeks of spring 2015 and reported that students who attended the Chem 10 boot camps had significantly higher success rates and course GPA than those who enrolled in the same sections the previous spring term. Over 96% of the survey respondents found that the Chemistry 10 boot camps were very useful. Our program now serves up to 82 students for 11 weeks each semester. We have about 7 instructors and 5 student workers. We take the students where they are and help them believe in themselves. Yes, you can learn these difficult concepts in chemistry. Yes, you can work that complicated word problem that was so frightening at first. And yes, you can open up your textbook when you get home and work independently because now you know what to do. But we still have a lot of work to do. We know that there are about 200 underserved students at SMC taking Chemistry 10 each semester. Even though we send out personal invitations, most do not participate. I personally feel that there is a fear of failure that stops these students. Thus, we are going to aggressively market the program in new ways. There are so many people for whom I have to thank, and I'll only take a moment to do so. I want to thank Sherry, Maria, and Georgia for believing in this program. Thank you. I want to thank you, Melanie. You wrote the Equity Boot Camp grant for us each semester and have supplied all of the prizes that we give to the students. It was also Melanie's idea to have students who complete the boot camp be automatically admitted into the STEM program. This is a huge incentive for our students. Thank you, Vanan, our STEM services specialist who facilitates our student workers and takes care of every detail. Thank you, Roman, for helping me direct the boot camp. My deep gratitude goes to so many of our instructors who are now included in the program, Drs. Chris Liu, Travis Ballard, Michael Strathern, Iris Rauder, Einert Smith, Jim Murphy. Thank you, student workers, Aisha, Sean, Michael, Fernando, and others. You did all of that great and ran around to expedite our efforts. And thank you, Dr. Catherine Jeffrey, our new SMC president. Thank you. And Dr. Jamie Anderson, my department chair. You provided the space so that excellence can be achieved. And thank you to my husband, Bob, because just like I sang to you at our wedding over 22 years ago, you are still the wind beneath my wings. And thank you to the esteemed chancellors and the Board of Governors for recognizing that our path is difficult but important. With your help, so many underserved students now have a chance to succeed in chemistry. But most importantly, while you sit in that heavenly place, I want to thank you, Dr. John W. Rice, for being an innovator for diversity and equity and non-discrimination. For without your efforts, this award would not be possible. Finally, I want to thank you, equity students, Diego and all the others. Let's continue to build hope that you can put into action as you learn to believe in yourselves, because together we know you can succeed. Thank you.
Well, congratulations. So this concludes the 2016 Dr. John W. Rice Diversity and Equity Awards ceremony. Please, everyone, give a big final round of applause to all our distinguished guests and speakers and to our exceptional award recipients. Our thanks also goes out to the staff here at the Crocker Art Museum for a job well done. It was a great venue for us this year. And once again, thank you to the Foundation for California Community Colleges for your generous support that made this awards ceremony possible. We hope this event has inspired you to make or continue to make a positive change on your campus and in your community to promote diversity and equity. Thank you for coming here, and have a great day.